Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the NBA Front Office YouTube channel. We are so excited for the NBA offseason, so much that is already going on, and we're thrilled to be able to break it down right here with you. Make sure you guys do subscribe right here to the NBA Front Office YouTube channel. Don't forget to turn on notifications as well. We really appreciate all the support that we've gotten. We're just over a month into this channel, and we are still just beside ourselves, so happy with how many people have found this useful and been sending us some well wishes. So very, very appreciative of all of that. We've got a lot to dive into today, but I guess first and foremost, Keith, glad that you made it home safe from your big family trip.
Yeah, me too. It was a lot of driving, over 3,200 miles, all told, between up and back, and all the driving we did around. But well worth it. But let's get into off-season stuff, because we had somebody shout at us that we were talking too much about where I was. So I'm home now. I'll be home now for the foreseeable future. So let's maybe someday we won't even talk basketball. We'll just slip one in where we're just hanging out.
Yeah, and no one will notice, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, right.
I guess
so for that one guy,
except for that one guy, then that person will be angry. But anyway, the biggest news of the day came out this morning. Bradley Beal considering requesting a trade from the Washington Wizards. Look, this is right there with Damian Lillard. Like Bradley Beal, Damian Lillard, they've been on high alert, right? We've been watching both of these guys for when do they request a trade. They're probably the two most talented guys on teams where it doesn't feel like they're ever really going to get over the hump and put them in a spot to contend. And so people have been speculating for a long time that they could hit the trade market and that it's only a matter of time before it actually happens. And now we had rumors that Damian Lillard might consider it. I feel like it's probably not happening this offseason at this point.
Yeah.
But Bradley Beal, perhaps something that he's going to think about and something that could come before the NBA draft coming up on the 29th.
Yeah, that's kind of the key date, right? Because if you're the Wizards and he's gonna do this, you want this to happen before the 29th, before the draft, because you want whatever team's trading you a pick this year, you want to kind of be in control of that pick. You don't want who they draft. You want them drafting for you. Because this is a trade, just so everybody knows too, it's highly likely, even if there is a trade, let's just say we got Bradley Beal's being traded to the Orlando Magic. And I'm using that because we know that's not going to happen. Right. But it would be highly unlikely that trade would be completed in this league year, just because of how large Beal's salary is. And there have to be a lot of moving pieces involved, player-wise, pick-wise, and all that. So this is going to be one of those, if we get a report on Thursday at the draft of, there's a Bradley Beal trade and, it's been agreed to, this is going to be one that's agreed to, and then it's going to be executed when the league year changes over in the first week of August. So it'll be one of those, it's agreed to, we all know what's happening, and then a week later, the teams will actually tweet, Bradley Beal's on the Magic, welcome to Orlando, and things like that. So that's likely how this goes down, if this happens at all. But yeah, I think this is Beal trying to do right by the Wizards as well, that if he's going to do this, he wants them to be able to do this. I think he also is smart enough to know, we know he's a very savvy guy. He knows, let's do this now so that can build up the package offer, because if a team picks a guy in the draft this year and it's not somebody that the Wizards want, that turns into more difficult to make that trade. So I think Beal's trying to do right by them, do right by himself, widen that market as much as they can. Jake Fisher, Bleacher Report, who had this report, mentioned a handful of different teams in there that could be interested in Beal. So it's going to be one of those where, just like we said with Damian Lillard, all 29 teams call. Who ultimately lands him, that probably a lot depends on what are the Wizards looking to do if they trade Bradley Beal.
Well, and I think something else we need to note here is there is a massive difference between Bradley Beal requesting a trade and Damian Lillard requesting a trade, and that's their contract length. Right now, Bradley Beal is effectively on 1 year. He has 1 year left on his deal, then a player option. So he's at $34.5 million for this coming season, and then has a player option for $37 million. He probably opts out of that and just hits free agency. So you have to look at him as a guy on a 1 year contract, which does give him a little bit of ability to direct where he goes. Because if a team calls up, like, let's say it's the Orlando Magic, right? Just again, to stick with that example, the Orlando Magic call up the Wizards and say, hey, we're going to give you all of this great stuff in order to get Bradley Beal. And the Wizards say, yeah, that sounds good to us. And Bradley Beal doesn't want to go to Orlando. He's going to say, you know what, guys? Magic, I appreciate that you're interested in me, but if you execute this trade, just know I'll play for you for a year and then I'm going to go somewhere else. And in most cases, that dissuades the team from parting with all those things. So Damian Lillard can't do that. He's got 4 years left under contract, doesn't have that threat to turn to. So Bradley Beal, as much as he can help the Wizards out here, he's not going to go to just any team. He is going to direct his landing spot if he does indeed ask for a trade.
Yeah, this is closer to the Anthony Davis situation than it was the Damian Lillard situation. Yeah. And Beal 100%, barring some major injury, something we don't see coming, he will opt out because he'll also be at 10 years of service at that point. So he'll be eligible to sign the, largest contract you can sign that year. He's projected right now, or he's signed right now for $37.3 million. That year it's projected to be about $40.5 million in first year salary. So he adds about $3 million in first year salary and then a lot more moving every year beyond that. So 100% he will opt out. But even if, again, like Anthony Davis, right, he opted out, he resigned, we all knew what was happening. It was one of those things where Anthony Davis opts out. Right. Let's all write that news, or even though you could have wrote, and immediately resigns with the Lakers had he been able to, given the free agency timing and rules. But yeah, so that gives Beal some modicum of control here. He can direct things a little bit. I just pulled it up just so we have it. The teams that Jake Fisher mentioned, the Toronto Raptors, we'll save them though, because we're going to talk something else he put in there in a minute here. Golden State, that one's been out there for a while now. Been thrown around. It sounds like Wiseman, the 7th and 14th picks. Then they probably have to be Andrew Wiggins for the salary matching purposes and those kind of things. That would be very interesting. The Hawks are a team he mentions, which could be really kind of fun because they've got a lot of young guys. If that's the direction the Wizards wanted to go, you could throw a whole group of young players at them. He mentions Bogdanovich, Herter, Reddish, and that would still leave you with a pretty good path. And then Boston. Boston's going to be mentioned here, and I'm not mentioning this out of being a Celtics guy and a homer or anything like that. It's Beal and Tatum are tight, and they talk about it all the time, completely unprompted. The two of them will bring that up. They don't even need to be asked about it, and they'll talk about it. They talked, both of them, how much they really wanted to play together on Team USA. As we know, Bradley Beal is not playing now for Team USA as they get started here in the next day or so, but depending when you listen to this. So, good luck to Team USA. Let's bring home the gold. Let's not have this foolishness we had in the World Cup. No poor finishes. Yeah, so that's the challenge for the Celtics becomes, though, Jaylen Brown have to be a part of the package. If he does, that gets a little tough. He's probably the best young player who's also signed that the Wizards can conceivably get in a trade like this. But Boston loves him too, so that becomes a little interesting to see. I'm not sold that they'd have enough to get Beal unless this became again a situation where Beal said, I'm going to Boston in 2 years because I want to play with Tatum, and he's there long term. But the list of players who have forced their way to the Boston Celtics is exactly that big. It's 0. So that makes it a little, that's unlikely that's going to be the direction it goes. But it's, where we've talked Damian Lillard and Ben Simmons a million times here. We're probably going to be talking Bradley Beal a lot over the next few days or a couple weeks at least. I'm guessing.
Yeah, and here's the thing too. What I hope doesn't happen is Beal gets vilified in this process, which sometimes happens, right? We see this happen where because if you're a fan, like you are a Washington Wizards fan, and suddenly Beal is saying, "Well, I want to be traded, and I only want to go to this team, and this team." As a Wizards fan, you suddenly go, well, you're killing our return. I don't want what that team has to offer, or that team isn't going to offer as much. Or if they say, I only want to go to one team, then your leverage goes down, right? And so then maybe you're getting less in return, or you just feel spurned by the fact that the player wants out. This is not the worst case scenario for the Wizards. The worst case scenario for the Wizards is Bradley Beal says nothing, plays out the rest of this year, and then walks as a free agent for 0 return. That is a much, much bigger blow than Bradley Beal getting traded somewhere else. So trust me, it's not great hearing, hey, superstar level player doesn't want to be on your team, but you would much rather have the player let you know ahead of time, hey, I'm probably going to go. That way you get something in return rather than just have the guy walk away and get nothing.
Yeah, and you'd rather do it now
Yes.
because that allows you to really set up your season for what you're going to be, which is what we're going to talk about next. But also, 34.5 million is a pretty big number. That's hard to move in season unless you're taking back a similarly big contract or the team is just set up with two big contracts. Because what we don't see in season generally is the trades where it's 2, 3, 4 players for one. Because, well, 2 or 3 maybe, but when you get into 3 or 4, those are very unlikely because what ends up happening there is one, the other team has to have roster spots to take all those players in, and if they don't, then they've got to clear out roster spots another way. So it gets very complicated to make those big salary trades in season. So you'd want to do it now, and then is what I kind of alluded to before is it lets you set up your season for what you're going to be. So let's say Bradley Beal gets traded, and let's just say it's not for another younger but still very good player. So whether it be Jaylen Brown or Ben Simmons or somebody along that front. If it's more for the asset package, like the Anthony Davis package, right? A bunch of young players and draft picks. Then if you're the Wizards, you're probably looking at it and saying, all right, are those young guys and Russell Westbrook and Davis Bertans, is that enough to get us to the playoffs? Probably not. So then do you start sniffing around, hey, what could we get for Bertans? Clearly, we know they would move Westbrook if they could. Not that Westbrook is done as a player by any means or anything like that. It's just $44 million this year, $47 million player option the year after. Yeah, right. I'm with you. The look on your face is like,
oh man,
but 91 million, right?
Yeah.
The next 2 seasons, that just makes it really hard. Or you could also look at it as, no, we want more of a package to win because we've got Bertans long term. We've got Westbrook for 91 million. We're not digging out of this anytime soon. We don't have a ton of young talent ready to step in. I still like Rui Hachimura and Denny Avdia, but those guys they still need more time, right? They need a lot more seasoning to be what they're going to be. So I think what becomes very interesting for Washington is now it's time. If you're going to trade Beal, this is your fork in the road. Pick a path. Either you're rebuilding or you're going to try to rebuild on the fly and stay competitive. Yeah, you get a Jaylen Brown or Ben Simmons in a trade, you're fine. You stay competitive. If you're fully rebuilding, then it becomes, all right, that changes a little bit what you might want package-wise in return for Beal.
And you kind of have to commit to one thing or another. If you're going to rebuild, go all the way and do what you need to do in order to jettison some of these guys off of your roster that are going to help you win games, that are veteran players that realistically aren't going to be good or not going to still be around by the time whatever young talent you get coming in is ready to win. So you got to make sure that it doesn't mean just do a fire sale and just, hey, everything must go. You have to take your time and make sure that you get the right deal, but you have to make sure that you pick a destination here. Do we want to completely rebuild, or do we want pieces that can maybe help us win now? Maybe it's important that they get into the playoffs and they're the 8 seed or 7 seed or something in the Eastern Conference. And maybe you can find a package that would help you at least have a shot at that in a Bradley Beal trade. I think most teams, though, in the situation that the Wizards are in, they would probably rebuild, right? You're probably going to tear this down because what you're going to get back, unless it's Jaylen Brown, okay, like we can talk about that. But unless it's somebody like that, you're probably not going to be in a great spot to win.
Yeah, they've always operated, though, as a team that it just feels important to make the playoffs every year versus, all right, let's really bottom out and try and win a championship by, nailing the draft and all this other stuff. So, yeah, it's not sure where they'll go. What becomes a question here, though, is we'll move on to another guy here beyond Bradley Beal because he's mentioned in this piece by Jake Fisher again over at Bleacher Report.
Well, actually,
Jake's been doing a pretty good job.
Before we get to this one, we do have a little bit of news that just came out, and it's not major here, but Shams Charania reporting that Suns Vice President of Basketball Operations Jeff Bauer is leaving Phoenix.
Okay, yeah, well, that's interesting,
especially for a team that just got to the finals. Something worth noting.
Yeah, and that was released by the Suns. So yeah, that is interesting. All right, Yeah, that's wonder if he's joining on with some of the other change around the
Yep.
league, with another team. Wouldn't be surprising if that's the direction he went there. He's a guy who's been around a very long time. He's worked for a handful of teams, I believe, New Orleans, Detroit, and some others throughout the course of his basketball career. Yeah. So the other guy we wanted to talk about here is mentioned in Jake's piece, and Jake's been doing great work for Bleacher Report here over the last. He's done great work for a long time, but he's really picked up and done some pretty good reporting. Is Pascal Siakam? One of the things he put out there is Toronto, for example, could offer a package centered on the number 4 pick in Pascal Siakam. But then there's the comment. This is where it gets interesting regarding Siakam, who's considered available for trade by sources around the league. So that says the Raptors are at least talking Siakam.
Yeah.
And that says to me, right, fine, the Beal part, sure, you could start to do that. There's your matching salary. You have the pick. All right, Siakam comes in. That's one of those moves where you say, all right, this keeps us more competitive moving forward and all those things. But what it says to me with Toronto is open to all sorts of stuff here. We know Masai Ujiri is not afraid to take big swings. It says to me, all right, maybe we're moving on from Lowry and Siakam. Maybe, we're going to keep Siakam. We're going to add other stuff. We're going to use Siakam to go add other players with this. But they are a very, very interesting team this offseason. Very much kind of hinges on what they do with Kyle Lowry and how they handle that situation. But, their team's got about 23 million or so in cap space to play with. They're not clearly fully gearing up to go get Giannis anymore, but they're in pretty good position to do some other stuff. So, yeah, I think Toronto becomes a very interesting team with that 4th pick and some of the guys that they have under contract, because they could either be right back in the playoff mix or they could really kind of tear this thing down and almost start over again.
Yeah, they've got a lot of different ways they can go here. And again, Siakam, 31.3 million next season, 33.6 the season after, and then a final season left on his deal at 35.9, almost 36 million on the books there. So he'd be an interesting guy. I think somebody that a lot of teams would want. There were rumors, gosh, it was a few weeks ago at least, that the Warriors might be interested in making a move to get Pascal Siakam. And of course, we can argue fit there, but this is a guy that would attract a lot of teams around the NBA. And if you're attaching the number 4 pick to him, you might be able to get a really solid return. I don't know. Does that beat a potential, say, Celtics offer if the Celtics are willing to come off of Jaylen Brown for Bradley Beal?
I think Brown is a significantly better player than Siakam.
Has more value,
I think Siakam also. Siakam he's going to be 28 this season, about halfway through this year. And I want to say Brown is only 24, maybe. Let me double check that.
So does the 4 pick bridge that gap?
Jaylen Brown will be 25 at the beginning of this season. So that's about a 2.5, 3 year difference. Yeah, right. I know. Yeah, ancient. Yeah, see how he feels after. Well, I shouldn't say that. He did spend all those hours in the car during the downtime when he joined the protests in Atlanta. He drove from Boston to Atlanta to do that. So I was going to say, let's see how he feels after hours spent in the car, but he did it. So, well, I'll have to ask him next time how he did feel after that drive, because I did not feel very good. But yeah, I think that 2.5 year age difference, and I think Brown being a better player, I think that makes up a difference. But yeah, your question then is that the difference between 4 and what else could be offered? But my guess is it would be Brown and players stuff. And other stuff. But Boston could even get it to the point where it's a big enough package. Then they could maybe even say, all right, you know what, we'll take back Berton's salary, and clear off your books, and you could really kind of clear the decks, and then say, all right, Jaylen Brown's our piece, and we're building around him and Washington here. And there's a lot of people who say Jaylen Brown's going to be the president when he's done playing basketball, so that already puts him in Washington.
There you go.
He'd be already set, but. But that is tough. Siakam and 4, that's not bad.
Yeah.
I'd be pretty happy to start with that as a package, because I also think Pascal Siakam's good.
Yeah.
I think people have gone a little too far on the Siakam stuff
Ben Simmons
with him not being good. Yeah, there is a little bit of that for sure. Yeah, because it really is. with Siakam too, I think he had that tough playoffs against Boston where he struggled some. But this is a guy who last year 45%. What really bottomed out for him was his shooting. He only hit 29% from three, or I guess just under 30. We'll be kind with that. But yeah, so that part really gets hard. But career high in assists, he upped his assists, so slightly bigger role. But I've said this before. I'll say it again. I'm not going to read too much into the Raptors stuff this year because the wheels came off for them this season, and so I'm not going to spend too much time on that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, only team that didn't play the game in their home arena all year. Didn't even go home all year.
That's right, stuck in Tampa Bay for the season. All right, let's get into a couple of little minor things before we get back into the heavy hitters. Isaiah Hartenstein and JaMychal Green opt out of their deals. Sounds like JaMychal Green does have interest in sticking with the Denver Nuggets, but we'll see what happens there. But not a shock, I think, that either of them opted out.
No, Hartenstein maybe a little bit with him. I think 1.7 million. He was on the second year of a 2-year minimum deal. His group did a great job to give him that player option on that second year because that gave him a lot of control. He can at least get back to another minimum deal. We know this for sure. He'd give up maybe a little bit of money on that, but not enough that it's going to really matter. So now he's got control over where he wants to be. And I think at Cleveland, this was probably a correct reading of the writing being on the wall of Jared Allen's here. If they draft another big in Evan Mobley, they've still got Kevin Love. Larry Nance is here to play small ball minutes. If I'm Isaiah Hartenstein, I'm pretty far down on the depth chart. Probably not getting in very many minutes. So let's move on. JaMychal Green, interesting name now in free agency. Could help a lot of teams, as he did Denver. My guess is one of Green or Paul Millsap is back in Denver, and my gut tells me they'll probably send an offer out where it's our $7 million a year or something like that for maybe 2 seasons. Maybe it's even only 1 year. And the first one to say yes gets it, and then the other guy is see you later. Right? They just don't need them both.
Yeah. No, they'll send that. That'll be in the offer. They'll say it. He'll say first one to reply gets it. Right? Go.
Maybe could be with
it's
that.
Going to be a competition.
Yeah, but second opt out for Denver, right? Because Will Barton, we already talked about that one. He opted out for the Nuggets as well, and we're into that time of year, right? We're going to be getting opt out news here over the next several days as well. So good stuff happening all over the week.
Yeah, seen for a lot of guys, the opt out date is right before March, end of July. We're seeing a lot of opt outs right there. All right, the other news here: Myles Turner. Maybe headed to the Warriors. I guess first and foremost, the Pacers are one of the most active teams out there on the trade market right now. But Myles Turner to the Warriors has been discussed. Remember, the Warriors do have, I'm not saying all these things would be added in, but they do have the 7 pick, the 14 pick, James Wiseman. They've got some movable pieces, and they also have a very strong desire to get better. We've heard that their star players, Steph Curry, Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, are all pushing for them to move the picks in order to get better right now. What do you think about the fit of Myles Turner? I mean, like when we think Warriors, we typically think 3-point shooting. Myles Turner can shoot the 3, but for a team that drafted James Wiseman already, is it a surprise to hear them going after a center?
No, not really, just because Turner fits. I think he can play as a role man off of their guys. They've got so many good passers. His shooting, I think he gives them a shot blocking presence as well that they don't really have. And I think you can kind of almost do somewhat what the Pacers did, where you put Turner maybe on the less of a concern out of the other team's bigs and let him float around and do some shot blocking and float off a guy, while Green can play the more primary scoring guy and be your defender there. Most importantly in this whole thing, I'm going to try not to throw my shoulder out here as I pat myself on the back. I've been saying this for forever, right? I've said it on this show. I've said it in other things, that they're going to split up Turner and Sabonis this offseason. We are, and I'm being facetious here because I think everybody saw this coming. But yeah, it's one of those things where it is it's just time for that to happen. What I find interesting too is for the Warriors, Turner at $18 million. That's not a super hard number for the Warriors to match. either like Beal, right? Going to get him,
That's tough.
that probably has to take Wiggins because that's 34 million that you have to look at matching. 18 million for Turner's not the end of the world, especially where maybe Wiseman was involved in that. That's already half of it at 9 million. So you're basically there. You do him, Looney, and something, and you're him and Looney alone probably pretty close to being enough. So that you're basically there at that point. With that, and that makes deals easier. When as stupid as this may sound, when deals are easier, they tend to happen. When they get super complicated and complex, it's just other things you have to do and make work. So yeah, I get it why they'd be interested. And if I was the Pacers and I could get Wiseman and a pick, I'd probably do it.
Yeah.
I didn't give it a shot with Wiseman next to Sabonis, or you could even then flip Wiseman to somebody else who needs a big and make it work that way.
Yeah, sure. I think it makes a lot of sense for both sides. I mean, if you're the Warriors and you're thinking about trotting out a starting lineup of Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Andrew Wiggins, Draymond, and Myles Turner, like that's pretty formidable, right? That's a pretty strong starting five to throw out there. And if you're looking at things thinking, you know what, Steph's getting older, he's still playing at an incredibly high level, but he's getting older. We want to make sure we maximize his potential to win right now. It makes a lot of sense for them, even if you do have to sacrifice the former number 2 pick.
Yeah, and I'm not even the biggest Myles Turner guy that there is out there. I'm not the biggest fan in the world, but I think what you also can do to get away with that a little bit is you've got some pretty good rebounders at your other positions there that make up for probably his biggest glaring lack of skill is rebounding. He's just not a good rebounder for a big. But you've got Green's a pretty good rebounder. Curry's actually a sneaky good rebounder for a guard. I think a lot of people don't know that. Wiggins a pretty decent rebounder for a wing. Klay Thompson always was. We'll find out if he still is or not. So yeah, I think that one makes a good deal of sense if they could find a way to pull it off. Then yeah, I would not be surprised if it went down that way. And you might be able to do that one without giving up the 7th pick. Maybe you could do like Wiseman in 14. 7 and still keep 7, and that keeps you in play for another deal or something else that that just kind of popped in my head there.
That trade, it has the ring of truth to it because you can make a strong argument for all parties involved to look at this as the best opportunity for them, right? And that's where you usually see things actually happen, right? When it makes sense for everybody to do the trade rather than, because we get offers sent to us all the time from fans saying like, hey, why don't you just trade this guy, and this guy for this superstar? Well, because that team would never do that trade. But when you look at a trade like this, you can make a real argument for why both sides would really like it. And they have strong motivation on both sides to do something for the Warriors with their pick, the Pacers with probably Turner, if it's between Sabonis and Turner. So I could definitely see this one happening.
Yeah. This one feels more realistic than just when we start throwing out other crazy stuff. I don't want to beat up on anybody because I don't even know where it came from, but this feels more realistic than Westbrook to the Lakers, which just feels like there's just so many hoops they'd have to jump through to make that happen. Like that doesn't feel, even if both sides wanted to, that's very hard to make happen. We don't need to go through why it's hard for the Lakers to make trades for the 5 millionth time, on this show or on the Lakers Nation shows. But it's just, this one, the first thing I always think of whenever I see one of these reports is, can it even happen realistically? And this one feels like you can.
All right. Last thing, as we round out what's becoming one of our longest shows that we've done here on the NBA Front Office YouTube channel, but such is the case with the NBA offseason. But the Rockets, according to Shams Charania, are now becoming extremely aggressive, trying to move up to number 1, doing what they can to get that number 1 pick, and they are targeting Cade Cunningham. They're trying to find out what it would cost to move up to number 1 from number 2. Interesting, and I think this year's draft day is going to be really exciting because so many teams are looking to make moves. But for the Rockets to get up to 1, like the knee-jerk reaction I've seen from Pistons fans has been, no, whatever you do, you don't trade 1. We've seen in the past, your Celtics made a trade with the first overall pick, and it worked out fantastic. Trading the number 1 overall pick is not necessarily the wrong move to make, but what do you think the asking price should be for Detroit when it seems pretty clear that Cade Cunningham is the guy? Like, it's not it's not like there's three guys and any of them could really be the best player. It feels like Cade Cunningham is the consensus best guy in the draft.
Yeah, it feels like the Star Wars, meme gif famous. It's a trap.
Right.
Like that. That's what I feel like. I just don't do it if you're Detroit. Again, I'm going to go back to with the Pistons. You added 3 guys in the first round last year, and then you traded for a couple other young players. You do not need a Oklahoma City like bounty of picks coming your way. It's make this one, and then you're going to start filling in with veterans around those kids and start pushing this thing forward a little bit. Because what happens is it sounds good to have a whole bunch of extra draft picks until you got to make them all, and then you got to fit all the guys in and get them all playing time and things like that. I'm also very high on Cade Cunningham. I think he is maybe the most sure thing in this class to being a very, very good player. I like Jalen Green quite a bit. That's the guy, if I was Detroit, if I was sold Jalen Green's my guy, and then I could see, all right, let me steal a whole bunch of extra stuff from Houston. I'll drop back. Kind of basically what Boston did to Philly that year was they were convinced Tatum was their guy. Everybody on the planet knew Lonzo was going to the Lakers, so they weren't concerned about that. So it was, all right, let's move back to 3, pick up the additional pick, and go just to take the guy we wanted, and we saved a few $1,000,000 a year by doing it. So I think it becomes here, if that's where you're at Detroit, if it's like Jalen Green's actually our guy, we can drop one place. And then I would tell Houston, I want our pick back that they owe them. They owe a protected pick. It would start there. So I want number 2. I want our pick back. And then I would ask for 1 or 2 of those Brooklyn picks.
I finished watching draft day last night, Keith. And so I'm remembering, I want my picks back.
I want picks back.
And I want David Putney.
Something other.
That's how I think those negotiations would go down.
Right? Yeah, that's it. You're Troy Weaver. I want my picks back to
all of them.
To the Rockets. I want all of them. Yeah. And then he's going to trade all his second round picks,
right.
Which he already did in the Luke Kennard trade. But yeah, so I think that's where I would start with. You're probably not getting multiple of those Brooklyn picks, and I would want the far out Brooklyn picks. I don't want the early ones. The early ones aren't going to be any good. I want the ones that are years down the line. But if that's where it is, that's where it is. If you're the Rockets, if you're sold, Cade Cunningham's our guy. We bring him in here. He becomes the real face of this team moving forward, and it's that. Yeah, then go up and get him. The Rockets side I have way less problem with on this. Go do it. Make it happen because you've got a whole bunch of picks. You've got all this stuff. Let's go. So, yeah, but this is the kind of stuff we're going to hear this whole week.
Yeah.
Is teams interested in trading up, teams interested in trading back, this team should that. There's a report Philadelphia wants to trade the 28th pick. I think they have the 28th pick. For veteran help. Yeah, no kidding. Daryl Morey he doesn't use draft. I think the last one he used in Houston was Sam Decker. And then he only lasted a brief amount of time before he was shipped out. I want to say maybe the Chris Paul trade. But it was definitely in a trade. He wasn't there very long. So yeah, it really becomes, if you're the Rockets here, go get Cade Cunningham if he's your guy. Then if you got to give up some extra picks to do it, yeah, because now you've got your franchise player moving forward. But my guess is this doesn't happen, but this is what happens this week.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, the rumors are going to be flying. And remember, always consider the source who might benefit from that news bit getting out.
Yep.
Something to think about as we see the rumors fly. Because remember, we've got 2 days between the draft and free agency really getting going. So there's going to be a ton of rumors going on. And I love it. I love this time of year. I've seen some people that are like, oh, I'm getting frustrated with all the rumors. I just want to know what's going to happen. I love this. I love being in the thick of all these different rumors and being able to think about all the different possibilities, all the different maneuvers teams can make. It does not bother me one bit that nothing official is happening yet, because I know that's still coming. We're building up to that point. It's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, so let's give a little bit of sense of that timing here as we
Yep.
close the show. So we've got the draft on the 29th, Thursday the 29th. Then things will go a little bit quiet-ish for a couple days
Maybe.
on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And then it's Monday this year. It's slightly different. Monday, the 2nd of August at 6 p.m. That's when that negotiation window opens. Or we're going to get it like Kemba Walker to Boston
48
2
hours
days in
ahead. Yeah.
advance of that, or whatever. I mean, we know it's going to be plenty busy. So Friday will be us kind of everybody will be collectively where did everybody end up in the draft, because we know there's going to be a whole bunch of trades and all that sort of stuff, and then we go from there. Did you know, just a little tidbit? Do you know how many teams hold their original 2021 second round pick? Like
Oh,
have their
man.
own pick?
I'm going to say it's less than half.
5.
5? No.
5 teams
5 total?
have their own second round pick in
Wow.
20 in the draft later this week. Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
Second round picks are currency.
Yep.
Never forget it.
True. Well, it's going to be exciting. We've got certainly a busy time here in the NBA. Can't wait. And then, of course, Summer League coming right on the heels of this, free agency period and all that kind of stuff. Oh, I love it. I love all the stuff that's going on right now. We've been telling you guys for a while that as soon as the finals ended, everything about the offseason was going to pick up. And here we are. We're in the thick of it. Make sure you guys do subscribe right here to the NBA Front Office YouTube channel so you can continue to get our breakdowns on everything that's happening across the free agent market, the draft, trades, all that kind of stuff. Turn on those notifications and, of course, give this video a like. Till next time, stay safe and see you.